Hello, it's time for Vibes of the Universe. I could begin this episode with the recent geomagnetic instabilities which were caused by another coronal hole stream impact on 8th of June. According to SWPC, this event triggered a G2 geomagnetic storm as the KP index reached 6 points. However, this kind of space weather activity became pretty common in last couple weeks, and I won't waste my time to discuss such obvious things. However, I will use this event to show you how enhanced space weather activity affects the ionosphere. Look at the change of ionospheric plasma measurements after the coronal hole stream impact, which took place almost exactly at midnight. This movie shows the electron densities at F2 layer during the day of geomagnetic storm, 8th of June. Notice what is happening over the southern part of Indian Ocean. Anomaly, which appeared in this region during the strongest geomagnetic disturbances, became the area of the biggest electron density over the entire globe. Of course, the influence of geomagnetic field on the ionosphere condition is a well-known fact. But before you will say that the Indian Ocean anomaly was probably just one of the effects of increased space weather activity, you need to know one more thing. On the animation from the previous day, anomaly appeared in the same spot almost exactly 24 hours earlier. Although the electron density didn't reach such high levels as during the G2 storm one day later, there are no doubts that it can be seen even if solar activity is low. If we'll check the data from last couple days before the coronal hole stream impact, things might get interesting, as it seems that ionospheric anomalies are being recorded all the time, even if the space weather conditions are perfectly calm. I think that it is worth to watch all the areas where disturbances are most frequent. Those two strange spots in which sudden bursts of electrons seem to take place on daily basis will be today my first example and another proof of weather patterns which are being shaped by magnetic forces. But first, let me introduce you my latest toy, a free application called DX Atlas. In couple words, it's a software which allows to predict the propagation of radio waves in the ionosphere. It includes interactive MUF3000, FOF2 and HMF2 maps archives, together with real-time monitoring. This is exactly what I was looking for, as there is not too many monitors where we can watch all their data. Right now, the gradient shadow represents the MUF3000 map, the same as the one from images generated by PropLab software. If we compare those two maps, it will be clear that they show very similar results. Main difference between those tools is the fact that DX Atlas is for free and is probably better than pretty expensive PropLab. Problem is that SWOTC NMF2 monitor concentrates mostly on the densities of electrons at the height of F2 layer, while MUF maps show the critical frequencies of waves which are being reflected by the entire ionosphere. Of course, those two measurements have very strong connection with each other, but the readings might be slightly different in both cases. For example, in the DX Atlas tool, anomaly which can be seen over southern Indian Ocean isn't so strong as on the SWOTC images. But it doesn't mean that you won't see it here, as the strange blob appears right in the same place and at the same hour as on the animation. And just as on the German simulation, soon after a second blob appears little bit to the west from the first one. I think that I can assume that those monitors show exactly the same disturbances. And for the dinner, the fattest meal from this menu. If you wanted to ask me if those disturbances can cause any visible and physical effects in our environment, you can start to wonder about different things. Those satellite images are everything what you need to learn the answer by your own. You can try to tell that it's just a coincidence, but better think for a while if you're not trying just to fool yourself. But let's go further and try to deal with a sudden energy outburst which took place 2 days later over Arabian Sea. I won't even try to guess what was happening under those ionized clouds, but it was probably sudden and violent. Clouds which have such big electric potential can cause a lot of damage, as they can trigger storms with strong winds, hail and huge dose of lightning bolts. But it's not all. Even more surprising is the fact that this strange and powerful storm cell seems to be absolutely stationary. It is already 6 days since the G2 storm from 8th of June, and those chemical and reactive clouds keep to appear over the same spot. If it wouldn't be enough, this mysterious air mass has its own daily cycle. Just after midnight UTC, storm cell starts to grow rapidly in strength, reaching its maximum in the early afternoon. Around 17 UTC, storm starts weakening, and before the midnight it turns into a small plume-like clouds formation. And then, of course, another cycle begins. This is probably enough to make a couple of professional scientists to scratch their heads for a while. Luckily, I'm a simple amateur, and I don't care too much about all the artificial limits in which titled scientists love to lock themselves, as they are still afraid of deeper understanding. Why all those nerds and mega brains which call themselves astrophysics keep to ignore the most obvious connections in cosmic interactions? I'm not afraid to say that everything affects everything else. Why no one of them won't even try to think that energetic particles are as well 100% physical? Ions and plasma are capable to affect so-called neutral matter. If part of ionosphere will be pushed to the lower levels, it will affect the particles which are making the atmosphere. You don't need to work for NASA to guess such obvious things. But the official science still can't connect those most important dots. But let us simply ignore all the shouts and curses and reach for the ultimate argument, which they are afraid so much. Data. I've checked already the MUF and FOF2 maps to look for any suspicious disturbances of ionosphere over the Arabic Sea, and I found some kind of event which is taking place every day in the afternoon. But I think that in the case of the Middle East atmospheric anomaly, it's the height of ionospheric F2 layer which plays the main role in forming and shaping the storm cell. There are no doubts that the activity of ionosphere is greatly enhanced over this area. Besides, timeframes of particular activities seem to match perfectly to the daily cycle of the Hermes. While we're still watching this corner of the planet, it would be a shame to ignore another daily disturbance which is taking place around each single midnight of UTC over northern Africa and the bigger part of Europe. Maybe I'm still a beginner in connecting the activities of ionosphere with atmosphere and weather patterns, possibly the only who's trying to do it at all, but I think that I won't make a mistake when I will tell you that we're looking here at a classic example of magnetic reconnection, in which two field lines with negative orientation merge into a single one. As a result, two pairs of opposite polarities appeared over the northern hemisphere. Problem is that I can only guess how they can be connected. It's like resolving a minesweeper with two mines and four fields placed in a square. Of course, as someone who can proudly call himself a doom-tart fearmonger, I will stay by the worst case scenario and place the field lines turned by 90 degrees to the natural magnetic field of Earth. What means that the magnetic equator, pink one, is perpendicular to the geographic one. By looking at the satellite images, I can sadly confirm my guess, as the direction of air currents close to the surface is the same as orientation of the closed field line, which connects those polarities over the atmosphere. It can be, of course, one of those famous coincidences, but right at the time when a sudden gust of wind covered couple African countries in dust, on the MUF 3000 map, we can see a clear reconfiguration of electron densities in ionosphere. And it seems that it is another of those events which repeat every day and cause quite spectacular effects on satellite images. If I remember correctly, I've recorded before waves of dust similar to this one. All of them took place in the same area. I think that now I know why. It seems that in this part of the globe, close geomagnetic field lines, which still have the orientation which is natural for our planet, that means connect north and south hemispheres through the geographic equator, are being ripped apart and reconnected along east-west directions. There is even more. It seems that the field lines which are breaking over Western Africa are directly connected with the blobs from Southern Indian Ocean, which are the side effect of reconnection. Particles traveling along the red field line, which were still in the way when the connection was lost, are being injected back into the atmosphere and powered by additional energy unleashed from the reconnection, cause powerful and sudden gusts directed towards the surface, what is causing those huge dust storms. Damn, I start to be afraid of my own mind. And this is still just the warm-up. Next step, which should be pretty obvious for most of you, is to couple the X-Atlas simulations with all possible monitors of the magnetosphere. Then, all what we'll left to do will be to include the seismic activity and the best model of interactions between space weather and Earth's environment will be almost done. To make it as smoothly as I can, I will use this image which was captured by GOES West satellite at 7:15 UTC on 12th of June. I captured those weird ring patterns many times in the past, and I can only guess that they are a visible effect of sudden geomagnetic pulses. But it's just a guess, not a claim. Of course, just by another coincidence, there's quite a lot of them in this movie. On HMF2 map, we can see another strange activity of ionosphere, which was taking place over Northern America at the time when GOES captured those rings on the image. If we will take a better look, we will notice another ionospheric reconnection in the southern part of continent, which was taking place simultaneous to the events in the north. To be honest, I have no idea which of those events can be blamed for the anomaly on GOES imagery. And instead to look for the best answer, I will add right now a third factor which could have something to do with those ring patterns. Both SWMF magnetosphere models from ISWA show us that around 7 UTC, Earth was hit by another wave of solar wind anomalies. Even if the time differs by couple minutes on both monitors, I think that we need to include all possible variables to build something what will be able to work even in the most unstable environment. It seems that during 12th of June, condition of interplanetary field was far from being stable. Density spikes, which we just saw, disturb the magnetic orientation of Earth's surrounding, what could trigger some geomagnetic pulses. But soon after the waves of increased plasma density and velocity, Earth had to deal with another cosmic surprise. I mean, of course, all the protons at low energy bands, which arrived later than the spikes. Although the protons came too late to have anything to do with the Gore's ring anomalies, their arrival was spectacular enough to mention about them in my movie. Just look. This is nothing else than a simple electric shock in the planetary scale. Sadly, I still don't have any data regarding the possible effects of this interplanetary jolt, but I really doubt that it didn't affect the planet at all, as the stream of particles punctured the bow shock and magnetopause like an armor-piercing bullet passing through pudding. It's only a simple guess, but I think that those strange bursts of protons, which are being recorded pretty often by ACE satellite in last couple days, might have something to do with this sudden increase of cosmic rays density. But let's go back to the main subject of this movie, to make another step forward in coupling the magnetosphere with ionosphere and weather patterns. But to make it work, I will have to go much deeper in all the details. Most important in this case is to track all magnetic connections of the planet and the areas where geomagnetic field lines affect directly the Earth's surface. Of course, in this case, SWMF simulations won't be enough, as we need all three dimensions to see where the field lines stick out from the planet. Thankfully, I have the Visbart application. Here we can track the connections all the way to the surface and compare this data with HMF2 maps on DX Atlas. For example, this group of field lines in South Pacific seems to match almost exactly to the area where this ionospheric anomaly appears almost every day. I can tell you even more. It seems that field lines connected to this particular spot are the open ones. From the HMF2 map, we can learn that particles are being there pulled up to higher altitudes, what means that those field lines are directed away from Earth, negative polarity. Of course, the main goal is to tell if this process affects somehow our environment. Well, on this animation we can see clearly that active air masses from warmer parts of planet lose their energy over this area. And if you ask about the possible influence on local seismic activity, just look at RSOE map. There is no need to make any comments. Over the northern hemisphere we can see another system which likes to stick to the area around Greenland. It can be another candidate for an air current powered by Earth low energy field magnetic connection. All we need is to see if there are some open magnetospheric field lines which like to appear in this region. This time I won't even mention about any coincidences. Now, let's see if my model works as well in the case of closed field lines of the magnetosphere. Problem is that every day around 16 UTC, Earth is reaching the biggest angle of geomagnetic axis tilt, what causes the deformation of plasma sphere. Right now in Wisbart there is only one field line which connects both hemispheres. I've marked it. I admit, there is a tiny error in the location of connectivity point over northern polar cap, but I think that it can be forgiven. Those simulations still can't be accurate in 100%. For now, I'm happy with 98%. And here you can see how it affects the air pressure in the area of connection. If you still don't have enough, look at this magnetic reconnection. And now, look what happened with those two low pressure systems after a couple hours. At the time when I record this movie, systems are almost completely merged into a single one, following the process visible on ionosphere maps. I could spend hours by explaining all the examples of weather patterns which are powered by electromagnetic interactions between celestial objects. Sorry for my overgrown ego, but this is probably the best model capable to explain most of processes in the environment in which we live. If you are still not convinced, simply check it by yourself. Data and applications which I use are free and open for public. However, I think that I gathered here enough proofs to turn my pseudoscientific claims into a completely new branch of science which connects astrophysics with meteorology. It will probably take some time for the scientific community to make some official confirmation of my claims, like many times before. But it's just a matter of time. It makes me a little bit sad that despite all my efforts to show my research to people who could tell me an opinion which would have some matter for the world of official science, I still didn't get even a single response, and I'm pretty sure that they read my emails. Soon, you won't be able to ignore me anymore. Of course, things which I've explained in this lesson still need further development. Wisbart is not capable to simulate the field lines beyond polar caps, and I can't track the outflows of plasma as they originate mostly at lower latitudes. All I've done was to open the door which were closed for thousands of years and lead you to a room which was hidden from our sight through all this time. It's up to you to go inside and see what you can find out. I would be absolutely delighted if someone would make a software which would combine the VisBard with DX Atlas together with MHD simulations used in SWMF monitors. If you think that my efforts to work with different data is incredible, imagine what I would be capable of if I would have such application. I would be almost like a god. Sorry for my sick sense of humor. Anyway, it's just the first step on my way to meet my destiny, which is to begin a process which can be called as the great unification of knowledge. Everything is connected somehow with everything else, as above, so below. I think that soon will be the right time to move further beyond the space weather and astrophysics, as the great unification has to include all known and unknown branches of science. Movies which I was recording in last 2 years are actually just a small part of things which got into my head couple months earlier. Since that time I feel a very strong urge to transfer this knowledge to our collective mind. I don't know what changes it can possibly cause in the world in which we live, but I saw what was happening with me and my surrounding at the time when I received the answers. It's hard to imagine what will happen if the same sensation will be felt by bigger part of our race. For now, I will finish this lesson with a movie which shows nicely the laws of electromagnetism in a process which has nothing to do with electric currents and magnets. Class dismissed. Be safe. Peace.
The structure is still there. That's kind of amazing.
Cool.
It collapsed it.
Wow.
Let's do this, Daddy. Daddy, can I come on the deck like this?
That's cool.
They're pouring the water in front. Or is that the smoke swirling?
Steam, probably. Yeah, come on out here.
It's nice up here. You can also I'm just gonna sit down here. Why am I wearing glasses?